Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are diving into something absolutely fascinating and honestly deeply practical. We're going to be unpacking some incredible insights from a profound homily by Father Joel Jamarsaskachis. We're looking really closely at this idea that the words we speak out loud don't just, express our internal thoughts. They actually, literally, shape our external reality.
Okay, let's dive into this. Have you ever stopped to think that your words can actually alter physical reality? I mean, it sounds almost like magic, right? But this is the exact core premise that Father Gautes presents to us. He basically argues that if we truly, deeply understood just how powerful our everyday vocabulary is, we would literally never carelessly drop another word out of our mouths again.
All right, Section 1, the power of words and the water experiment.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how Father Gaddis grounds this deeply spiritual concept. He points to a real-world scientific anecdote to make it super concrete. He references this famous experiment by a Japanese researcher named Dr. Masaru Emoto. Picture this. He takes two simple bottles of water. To one bottle, his students repeatedly spoke really positive, loving words. To the other bottle, they spoke hateful, angry words. When they looked at the water under a microscope, the results were mind-blowing. The water exposed to love and good words had literally formed these beautiful, highly organized, crystal-like patterns. Meanwhile, the water exposed to hate and bad words became completely chaotic and disfigured at the molecular level. No physical touch, just words.
Think about that for a second. This brilliantly illustrates such a profound truth. If spoken words have the sheer power to fundamentally alter the molecular structure of water in a bottle, what on earth do you think they are doing to you? Father Gaddis makes this really powerful connection. He says our words have the exact same ability to change our minds, our hearts, and ultimately our day-to-day lived experiences. Basically, if you want to change your life, you have to start by changing your speech. And this leads right into the theological premise of his homily. Go all the way back to the book of Genesis. When God created the entire universe, he didn't use a hammer or a sword or heavy machinery. He used his words. He said, "Let there be light." Father Gabriathis reminds us that words possess this divine creative power. And because we are made in his image, the words coming right out of our own mouths also carry that exact same power to create life or, unfortunately, to destroy it.
Moving right along to Section 2, words as seeds, planting your reality.
So here's where we get into the first really big metaphor of the homily. Father Gaddis defines every single word we repeatedly speak as a seed, or a binhi in Tagalog, that we plant directly into our own hearts. You know when you constantly repeat phrases like, life is so hard, or I'm just exhausted, or I am always unlucky? Well, you aren't just venting. You are literally planting seeds of negativity. And over time, as those seeds grow, you subconsciously convince your own mind that this negativity is your absolute, inescapable reality. This is where Father Gafutis points out a massive, kind of heartbreaking contradiction in how a lot of people live. They'll go inside the church, right, and pray super fervently, saying, "Lord, please bless me." But the very second they step outside those doors, they start complaining. My life is hopeless, my spouse is stubborn, I'm never going to succeed. He describes this so perfectly. He says it's like planting beautiful roses with one hand, but pouring deadly poison on them with the other. You simply cannot plant death in your daily speech and then expect to harvest peace and prosperity. It just doesn't work that way. Let's move to and see how this builds in Section 3, the steering wheel of life, directing your destiny. This introduces his second and, frankly, highly actionable metaphor. Father Gaddis describes the human tongue not just as a body part, but as a manibela, the steering wheel of your life. It literally dictates your direction. When we curse or use foul language or speak really ugly words out of anger, we are physically turning our steering wheel toward negative, bad experiences. He says that cursing literally blocks the divine blessings you are meant to receive, all because you've pointed your steering wheel the absolute wrong way. So the crucial point here is how we can actually reframe our speech today. Because faith isn't about just denying that you have problems, right? It's about choosing to speak with hope despite those problems. So instead of saying, life is hard, try substituting it with, life is hard, but I have God with me. Instead of saying, I want to give up, grab that steering wheel, shift it, and say, I am tired, but God gives me strength. It's such a simple, actionable change, but it completely shifts the direction you're heading. Which brings us to our final section, Section 4. True prayer, connecting with God. Now that we fully understand the immense weight of our everyday words, How does this actually change the way we speak to God? Father Goddess draws on the Gospel of Matthew, where Jesus warns against babbling like pagans who think they're going to be heard just because they use a ton of words. Now, to be clear here, Jesus wasn't condemning long prayers. He was condemning empty words. If you speak 1,000 words but your heart doesn't actually move any closer to God, you aren't really praying. Words without love, without faith, and without heart, that's just noise. So what does a true, powerful prayer actually look like? Well, sometimes it's incredibly simple. Father Gaddis outlines this beautiful, step-by-step approach. First, just sit in silence. Second, breathe deeply and try to actually feel God's love. And third, simply say Our Father or Ama Namen with total love and trust. He compares this to a little child just calling out Mama or Papa. The second a parent hears that voice, their heart is moved and they rush to comfort their kid. That is exactly how God reacts to a sincere, heartfelt call from us.
And this brings us to what I personally believe is the absolute most powerful takeaway of this entire explainer. Don't make a prophecy of your fear. In Tagalog, huwag mong gawing propesya ang iyong takot. Think about it. When we constantly speak our worst fears out loud, we are essentially praying for them to happen. We are verbalizing our despair and speaking it into reality. Instead, Father Goddess challenges us to take our trust, our hope, and our faith and turn that into our prayer. When things get tough, declare it out loud. God can handle this.
Which leaves us with this final, incredibly important question for you to really reflect on. What will your words plant today? Remember, every single time you open your mouth, you are planting a seed and you are turning the steering wheel of your life. So, are you going to plant poison or are you going to plant life? Thank you so much for joining me as we unpack these profound insights. I really hope you walk away today feeling empowered to use your words to shape a true